Hello and welcome to day 2 of this course. We are focusing on the Every Child Ready to Read practice of reading. So this might be the most common one you think of when you're doing story time, either at a library or at your home. And yes, reading is extremely important for children. Why? Because reading not only connects you to your child, but it also helps them learn words they may not hear in everyday conversation. Think about the last book that you read with your child. Was there a word that you don't usually use when you speak with them? How many times do you use the word initially with your child, for example? But you might find that in a picture book that you read to them. So just remember that books give your children an opportunity to hear words from your mouth that you may not think to use with them on a daily basis. And the books that you read with your child depend on their age. So the younger they are, generally the fewer words that exist in each book. And as your child gets older, then their attention span lengthens and the books can likewise get longer. Now, some children, if you've read to them for a long time, will be more comfortable with longer books at a younger age than a child who maybe hasn't been read to as much. And that's okay. Everyone develops differently. Something that I want you to think about. We're going to go through our 3 things to think about early in this course. First one is that your child may not want to sit through an entire book. That's okay. If your child wants to read something different, just stop the book, set it aside, come back later. That's important for a couple of reasons. When your child sees that it's okay to set a book down and come back, then they're going to still be enthusiastic about that book later on. If you force them to sit through a book that they're not interested in reading, that's going to set them up to not enjoy reading very much. And that is not our goal here. We want reading to be fun for your child. Interacting with your child with reading when they're in a positive mood is the best way for your child to get involved with reading. So don't worry if they're not into it, just set it aside and come back later. The second thing I want you to think about is that there is something called the 30 million word gap. That means that children from less affluent homes tend to hear, on average, 30 million fewer words than children from more affluent families by the time they are 3 years old. That huge gap is what sets children back in school, because if they haven't had exposure to that language, then they're not prepared for all of the challenges that come with school ahead of them. So, as you're speaking with your child, as you're interacting with your child, make sure that you're using lots and lots of words and real words. Baby talk doesn't count. So speaking to your child in a way that they can access, but also in words that they will use once they start speaking, is critical. The third thing to remember is that books are not about the words only. So even if a book is lacking words, then you can still engage with your child with that book. You just have to do it a little bit differently. Even when a book has words, there's more to that book, especially a picture book, than the words alone. So finding other ways to interact with your child with the book is really important. So we're talking about the different kinds of books you can read with your child based on their age. If you have a very young child, often you'll have a book like this one that's black and white. So it's very high contrast because babies can't see a lot of colors and they can't see very clearly. So when they have a high contrast book like this, they can more clearly see the images that are involved. Now, as you're reading this book with your child, you may find it hard to do because there are no words. And if you're not comfortable reading a book without words, then this is a huge challenge. But there are ways to engage. And what this used to be called is dialogic reading. What that means is looking at the pages of a book and talking with your child about them. Whether your child can respond or not, it's okay. You can say things like, look at this balloon. The balloon is white. The balloon floats in the air, and you often get a balloon on your birthday. Or you could talk about this chair. What a nice chair. Do you have a chair? This one has a heart on the top of it. Do you hear how much language I'm using when there's no text at all on this page? There's a lot of ways you can engage with your child with the images in a book, and that is important. You can also engage with them with books that have words, and that just goes beyond the text. So say you see a picture like we just looked at with a chair, and you're reading Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Now, Goldilocks and the Three Bears has a chair, right? It has 3 chairs. So if you were to see this picture in Goldilocks, you've read the story about the small, middle, and large chair. Talk about the chair. What color is it? How big is it? Is it broken? Is it fixed? What do you think would happen if someone heavy sat in the small chair? Or if someone small sat in the big chair? What might happen? All of those questions get your child to think beyond the words of the story, and it might inspire them to create stories of their own. There are lots and lots of wonderful books out there. I've added a link to the Colorado Libraries for Early Literacy list of books that engage reading below this video. Check it out if you want to know about other books that really support this idea. Now, your homework assignment for this module. Go home tonight, read a book with your child. It can be a familiar book or a new book, but try this dialogic reading. See if you can engage with your child in a way that is different than just reading the text itself. And if your child isn't ready, set the book aside and come back later. So give that a try tonight and then come back tomorrow for module number 3.